Alone in the Dark, no subtitle this time, was released in 2008 for Xbox 360, PS3, and PC. What many people didn't realize at the time was that there was another different version released for the PS2 and Nintendo Wii. While the next-gen version was being worked on by Eden Games, a company called Hydravision Entertainment was simultaneously working on a different version of the game that featured a more linear game compared to the open-world experience on the 360. Both versions have a similar script, but then go off in their own direction, creating a unique experience on the aging console. I played the Wii version when it first came out, and I remember my experience being pretty miserable. The game had some of the worst motion controls I've ever seen in a game. For this video, I'll be taking a look at the PS2 version of the game, because it's just simpler to play it with a real controller. I hear people talk about the next-gen version occasionally, but I really never hear anyone bringing this one up, so I decided to go back and have a look at it. I wanted to see if my problems with the game were based solely on the motion controls, or if there were other, deeper problems here that affected the experience. We're introduced to our unnamed protagonist, who... It's Carnby. Every Alone in the Dark has you playing as Edward Carnby. I don't know why they try to keep this a big mystery for the first half of the game, but even just seeing the character model next to his New Nightmare version makes it pretty clear who he is. Unfortunately, he's lost his sunny disposition from New Nightmare and become even more of a jerk than before.
Jesus, could you stop doing a running commentary on everything? You're driving me nuts.
Maybe I should cut the guy some slack. I mean, he is 100 years old after all.
That's weird. That's impossible. That's impossible.
What?
Look at the picture.
Oh my God!
Edward Carnby, born New Orleans, 1897, famous for solving the suicide case of Jeremy Hartwood at Derketo Manor in 1924. He was last seen in New York in 1930. He apparently disappeared under rather strange circumstances and vanished from the face of the earth.
Yep, in an attempt to tie all of the Alone in the Dark games together, including the early ones that took place in the 1930s, they've made Carnby into an immortal somehow. It's never really explained, which is about to become a running theme with this game. The game's story takes its inspiration from television. The creators wanted to create an experience similar to dropping in on one of the later seasons of Lost or Twin Peaks, where you have no idea what's going on, but slowly get drawn in by the intrigue. Except they forgot to write anything intriguing. Most of the story is deliberately vague. You spend the first half of the game trying to get a grasp on the plot, before you finally realize that it doesn't really matter. Before you know it, the story has moved on to new, vague references that mean something to some writer somewhere, but leave the rest of us scratching our heads. It gets so bad that near the end of the game, they introduce a character named Pete, whose sole job is to spew exposition about the Philosopher's Stone and Carnby's connection to it. And it's just like, where was all of this information for the first half of the game? It seems like they spent so much time playing coy with the audience that they got near the end and realized that they never told much of a story. There's a lot of blah blah Philosopher's Stone, blah blah his army, blah blah Carnby is a demigod. I understand not showing your hand too early and keeping a mystery in the story, but you've got to leave some breadcrumbs for the audience to follow if you want them to follow at all. There are also no notes to find in this game, so all of the story exposition is going to come from the character conversations, and by God do they talk a lot. I don't know which is worse, the 47-page document from New Nightmare or this. I had to groan every time that Carnby would respond to one of Pete's long-winded stories by asking to hear more. Oh sure, we've got people turning into zombies, there are fissures in the surface of the earth swallowing people, and there's a group of hitmen trying to kill us. But please, tell me more about the quest of Sir Galahad.
That's funny.
Your partner here is Sarah Flores, an art dealer and chronic backseat driver.
Turn the wheel! Turn it again! Again! You ever been behind a wheel or what?
She comes and goes depending upon the scene, but sometimes her responses to Carnby can be downright miserable. Like the time that she points out that Carnby is losing a lot of blood, only to hand him her card and tell him to call 911 before wandering off.
And thanks again for saving me back there. I won't let you down. I swear.
Really, most of the characters here are like that. They're kind of just horrible people who snap at each other constantly. The only character that I did like was the security guard at the museum. Seemed like a nice enough guy, but then they had to go and kill him off-screen. You can play the game in either first-person mode or third-person, except when the game tells you that you can't. Using items like fire extinguishers and even jumping require the player to be in third-person mode. There are also portions of the game where you are locked in first-person view or third-person view, depending on the situation, and I always hated these moments because I was much more likely to fall to my death when I couldn't look down. The camera is going to fight you more than any of the enemies. Sometimes just moving it around smoothly becomes a challenge, and it makes things like platforming into a leap of faith. I noticed that when you're in third person, you can't move the camera up as much as you can when in third. It also likes to droop down towards the floor, leaving me constantly trying to lift up the camera to where I want it. It also strangely has the head bob effect, even when you're in third person, which gave me a bit of motion sickness, not gonna lie. Combat is an absolute joke. You could run past many of the enemies without much of a problem. Most of them will go back to patrolling their little area without a care in the world. At least the zombies in Resident Evil would sort of home in on you. These things don't even care about you once you get a certain distance away. In the rare situation that the game forces you to fight an enemy, you can just shoot them until they go down. The game wants you to think that you need to use fire on them to kill them, but regular weapons and even melee can get the job done just fine. This game also has the clunkiest melee system I've ever seen. You hold L1 and rock the right switch in different directions to get Carnby to swing. Left and right on the stick will make you swing the object left and right, while pushing forward will give you a thrust, and holding down gives you an overhead swing. You're better off just swinging it left and right because you can keep enemies stun-locked while you pummel them with a garbage can or fire extinguisher. There are a few driving levels where you have to dodge objects in the road while something is chasing you, and I remember these missions being the bane of my existence on the Wii. You had to move the Wiimote and nunchuck in a circular motion to simulate holding on to a steering wheel. And you folks do realize that I'm working with a sensor bar here, not Bluetooth, right? Driving with a PS2 controller is better. I feel like I have more control of the vehicle, but these sections are still bullshit. The game loves to hit you with things out of nowhere where there's no way you could have possibly been able to see something in the road and be able to react. Slow down too much, and the fissures will swallow you up, making you repeat the entire section from the beginning. I should point out that you don't actually have to play any of the sections of the game in order to see the ending. In an attempt to be more like a TV show, the game has a chapter select section, like a DVD menu. So if you have a section of the game that's giving you trouble, you can just skip past it and move on to the next part. I'm not sure if this is much of a feature. You're saying, parts of our game are really gonna suck, you might want to just skip them. Personally, I never use this method. The game's not really difficult, just confusing at times. There are all kinds of gimmicks on display here, and I feel like some of them get in the way more than enhance the experience. At the start of the game, you have to keep pressing R3 to blink your eyes and clear your vision. Within moments, your vision will become cloudy again, so you'll have to keep blinking them again and again. You can't even ignore it, because the game will start flashing a hint at the top of the screen. I had such a hard time focusing on the dialogue that I missed most of the conversation here. Not that it matters much. The story got chopped to pieces in this version. The devs had fun coming up with little gimmicks where you would have to do something exactly once to solve a puzzle and then never do it again. What if we have a part where you have to shoot lights off the wall so that they hang and make a safe path? What if we have a part where there are lasers that will lock the door if the player touches them, so they have to spray a fire extinguisher in front of them to see it? What if we have a room where you need to carry a big stone around with you and use it to tap these lights on the side of the path, which will then make parts of the room rotate, allowing the player to draw a line of light from one end of the room to a door at the other end to unlock it. And also there are these spikes that shoot out of the ground. What if we... Shut up! There were more than a few times where I would be doing something correct, but the game just wouldn't give me credit for it. I had one time in the parking garage where I drove all the way around but couldn't find a way out. I even tried smashing through one of the doors, but it wouldn't budge. Well, it turns out that I was supposed to smash through the door. I just had to have my camera in third person for it to register. There is a lot of that in this game. Parts where you're expected to make these leaps in logic to get certain things to work, and then things don't always work the way that they're supposed to. So you start to gaslight yourself saying, no, this must not be it. I'm doing something wrong. When you're actually doing things right, the game's just not really feeling it this time. Some of the puzzle solutions are way out of left field when you stop and think about them. Who would naturally think that the best way to get out of a building is to set the place on fire with a blowtorch and burn your way out? How about using a fire axe to cut through an electrical cable sitting in water? I honestly thought I was about to get fried right here. It has a few features that I thought were neat. I liked the hot wiring minigame, where you have to strike the wires together, then hit the gas, and I especially like that you could honk the horn by mistake and alert the bad guys. I also get a kick out of the part where you drive a forklift and move boxes around. As someone who has a forklift certification, I can tell you that it controls pretty well, possibly even better than the cars in this game. Just don't speed down an incline like you do here. It's really not safe. Also, what is with this game and climbing up and down ropes? They're everywhere. I haven't seen this many ropes in a game since Castlevania The Adventure. Anytime you're stuck and don't know where to go, just look for a rope that magically may have appeared and can coincidentally always hold the weight of a full-grown man. I especially enjoy the part near the end of the game where it turns into Tomb Raider all of a sudden. But you're still climbing on ropes that are just hanging there potentially for centuries, and they're still perfectly safe. Exactly what is the lifespan of a hemp rope? Indoor use, proper storage. When stored correctly in a cool, dry, and dark place, a hemp rope can last for several years, potentially up to 10 years for very light or rare use. Yeah, I'm gonna have to call bullshit. I definitely wouldn't trust these. Then again, I wouldn't trust any of the cars here because none of them come with airbags. The graphics on display here are abysmal, even for the time. Remember, this game came out a year after God of War 2. There are a few attempts at playing around with lighting, feeding into the whole light versus dark theme of the story, but it never really works right. There are times where you have to take a piece of furniture and light it on fire so that it can light the way, except it doesn't really illuminate much, and I still had a hard time seeing the path. You can also hold R3 to shut Carnby's eyes and focus on points of interest. There are times when you'll need to keep your eyes closed to see the path ahead, all while the ceiling is crushing down on your head. And I'd like to know what genius decided to have us holding down R3 while walking a narrow path with a crushing ceiling. It couldn't have been a toggle on and off, or a different button? It's little things like this that add up over time to slowly suck the enjoyment out of the experience. And the ending is absolute nonsensical bullshit. If the game has one thing going for it, it's that it's short, clocking in at around 4 hours. I'd usually get mad at a game for being so short, but I think I've had my fill. It has a wide variety of gameplay mechanics, I'll give it that. A lot of them fail miserably, but if nothing else, the Alone in the Dark games know how to shoot for the moon. I really don't know if there's any way to play it other than emulating it or finding a physical copy. It's not worth putting a lot of time or money in to getting it to run properly. So unless you're an avid fan of the series, you can probably skip this one.